joining us from The Athletic. Terrific reporting as always, and lots going on here in Los Angeles in particular with the Lakers. Sam Amick back here on the Rich Eisen Show. How you doing, Sam?
Rich, doing great. Good morning, sir.
So can you let me know when there's big meetings at the Lakers front office? Because that's just right around the corner. I could bring them donuts. I could bring them coffee. I could put my ear to the ground. I could do all sorts of that. That happened Tuesday, just like 6 days ago down the street from us here, Sam. I could be there.
They should have included some of LeBron's branded tequila just to lighten the mood a little bit.
Well, I mean, it doesn't. Sam, I got to tell you, I don't know if the mood needed to be lightened, because from your article, I've written the quote down here. They were, quote unquote, laughing and catching up. They were laughing and catching up.
Yeah, they got there. It's interesting. I mean, it was damage control mode, in my opinion. Just such a fascinating, 10-day stretch, roughly. And then for me, Rich, you got to start with their terrible loss to Milwaukee before the All-Star break. If you remember, and you've been doing this for so long at such a high level that, you're very good at connecting dots. So it's not a real coincidence that night LeBron announces publicly that they're just not on the Bucks level. And then that same night, there's, I think, at least 3 reports that were very similar that were sourced from the locker room that the Lakers players do not believe this roster is good enough. It kind of starts there, and then, you guys capped a few of the things before I jumped on as far as the different messages coming from LeBron. It's the tweets, it's the Sam Presti comments, all the above, the interview about Cleveland, and then just got messier and messier. So the meeting, I think, was just to obviously calm the waters and get this thing back in a productive place. It didn't look that way last night, but they've been trying.
Well, there's one thing that's missing, and I'll ask you if anybody knows what it is, if you know what it is and you're willing or you can share it, is there had to have been a trade during the trade deadline that LeBron either caught wind of, knew about, or Rich Paul caught wind of or knew about, ear to the ground, that that Pelinka said no to, and that and that's part of what happened behind the scenes, or am I just, that's a false assumption?
No, I mean, I have pressed on that specific question with people who would know, and the answer I got was, and I tried to write this, that it was a little more holistic, that they, LeBron looks at other teams and, okay, a guy like Austin Reeves has had some good moments, Malik Monk's been a good find, but they need more of that on this roster. Since you don't have assets and you couldn't be aggressive trade-wise, they should have found a way to, Dwight Howard, DeAndre Jordan are kind of, for the most part, taking up roster spots at this point, not playing as much as they thought they would. But in terms of a specific trade, this is just me talking. I would not be surprised if, I feel like, and LeBron's never going to admit this or talk openly about it, but the Russell Westbrook, John Wall possibility was obviously available to them. And there was 2 iterations of it. One was you give Houston your 2027 first-round pick. And I do truly believe that LeBron and his associates, obviously including Rich Paul, support the Lakers' decision and feel like that would have been unwise to give Houston the first. But then we learned that, okay, well, you could have got it done if you did a pick swap. So you don't lose your pick, you just get the worst of the 2 picks down the road. And this is the part where it's just me talking. If I had to guess, LeBron probably thinks they should have pulled the trigger on that. But again, that's just me. And then with John Wall in particular, another kind of factor that I was told was that because he hasn't played all year, the Lakers they were uneasy about, investing anything. They at least know what Russell Westbrook is. And so there wasn't a ton of confidence that John Wall was going to come in and be a game changer. And they felt like, that, so they said no to that. But in terms of specific deals, that's kind of the only one that people really talk about.
Yeah, because that's where, in my mind, rubber meets road, and why same pages can be found, right? Is that now that this has been a conversation that's been had and the laughing and catching up went down and what have you, there had to be a conversation about what happens once the summer hits, right? I mean, there has to be that sort of conversation about what now, what next, what is something that LeBron expects, or what's something that Pelinka's thinking about and how that can all be on the same page, right? Like, so what is the fix? What is the future, the next steps?
Yeah, I mean, admittedly, that's where I don't have clarity. I have a feel for the vibe, and the vibe, it feels to me like on the LeBron side of things, I mean, okay, he he sent all these strong messages, passive, aggressive, all of the above. But then I do feel as if he, when he came out of the All-Star break and he got back in the locker room with the Lakers, there was a recalibration there where he was not willing to burn the bridge entirely. It does seem pretty clear to me that, like I said earlier, there was a damage control intent. Even having the meeting shows that much. Now, what it means for the summer, we shall see. Of course, August 4th, he can sign a 2-year extension, and and that's where the question becomes: what does he want for his future? Even independent of the conversation about his son and whether or not he'll play with Bronny, I think, my goodness, Rich, last night they not only get played off the floor by the Pelicans. I just a few minutes ago watched some of the social media stuff from behind the Lakers bench. I mean, you've got Trevor Ariza, Russell Westbrook getting into it with fans. LeBron's chirping with fans while he's in the middle of the game. The Boo Birds were out. Jeannie Buss left when they were, at least appeared to leave when they were down like 25 points, left her seat and went through the tunnel. Just an ugly scene. So if you're LeBron, it just becomes, can you fix this? And if not, are you going to do something else and head out?
Well, what's to do something else? I mean, how do you see that? If, again, there's a conversation to be had about what picks to, if you will, F in the future that keeps LeBron happy, right? And then if that doesn't materialize, then LeBron will say F this and want to hit whatever button. Well, how does that work? You have to find a partner. And then, again, LeBron's contract extension, the 2 years doesn't match up when Bronny would come out. A 1+1 would, right? Like that.
Right.
Walk me through what that plan B might look like here in LA.
Yeah, I mean, it's
him.
hard to say just without knowing the market elsewhere. I mean, at face value, you feel confident saying it's LeBron, Ramon James, right? And he's still playing, probably a shade below MVP caliber level.
Right, sure.
I mean, his numbers are incredible, not showing an ability to will them to actually win games, but he's playing, he's not the problem this year. So you've got a lot of teams that are going to be interested, but what's the price tag going to be if they decide, mutually to do something? I don't know what that looks like. I also think, and I think you're probably extremely well-versed in this, having covered the Lakers for a long time, like, how interesting is this dynamic in the context of Lakers history, Lakers culture, Jeannie Buss, the way she was raised by her father to run this thing? Yes, they are a star-friendly culture. They also traded Shaquille O'Neal when they thought that was prudent. They have made other tough choices before. I do feel like there is a bit of a kind of a cat and mouse game happening right now between the two sides, where they're deciding what they think of one another at this stage of the relationship. And so that's where, you can't read Jeannie's mind, but, is she thinking about moving past this chapter? I don't know. I think she's pretty pragmatic, and she's, shown an ability to make tough choices before, so I wouldn't take that off the table. And that's where I think they have to see how the end of the season wraps up, see what the possibilities are in the summer in terms of the roster, and then go from there.
Yeah, I'll be honest. I mean, I know Kobe, rest his soul, before he passed, told her that she needed to be like the mother of dragons, right, when she makes these types of decisions. But I also think, what the Lakers would love to have is, why wouldn't the Lakers? It's so on brand for them to want to have LeBron finish his career here, let him have his Griffey season with his son here, while spending whatever picks need to be spent to get a championship roster for his dotage years here, and sell the jerseys and get the attention and have all of those ceremonies. Like, that's their brand, right? Don't you think?
It is,
Sam?
It is, but for one, it's, sell all those picks. Really, by the time this summer comes around, we are talking about 2 first-round picks. I believe 2027 and 2029. Mm-hmm. That's not getting you another star. That might get you off of Russell Westbrook. That will get you off of Russell Westbrook. But, I don't see a path currently toward a title-worthy roster. And then the other thing, I guess, to give a hat tip to a colleague of mine who has certainly had a very interesting couple days is Bill Oram, who covers the Lakers for The Athletic, had reported this it didn't fly under the radar, but I don't think it got enough credit. That his understanding in terms of the Lakers' view of this thing is that LeBron and Clutch at this point have more influence and more sway than Kobe even did. And that's such an incredible statement. And to me, that's where it comes back to Jeannie, and it's like, what's her comfort level if, in fact, that is the kind of the feel and the vibe and the read of the room. I think there's a fair question of, like, LeBron, we want you here, and yeah, we'd love it if you finish your career here and all these things, but if you think you're going to run the entire franchise and take complete control of this thing, that's not happening.
Yeah, because Clutch has Anthony Davis too, and that's the reason why Anthony Davis is there is because of LeBron and Clutch. Let's be honest, and that's what's kind of crazy. Sam Amick of The Athletic here is that they got wiped. The floor wiped with them by the team that they acquired Anthony Davis from. You know what I'm saying? Right. And so, man, there's just so much to talk about here on the Lakers front. But I do want to move right now to the Eastern Conference. First blush, the Harden acquisition appears to put the Sixers on quite a trajectory. How do you think this is going to play out over the next several weeks?
Yeah, they look really good. It's funny. I texted a buddy of mine in the business, Mo Dakhil from Bleacher Report, had written a bunch of stuff saying that he had X's and O's concerns about the Harden and Embiid pairing. And it was a smart analysis breaking down why it might not be as great as people would assume. So naturally I had to give him a hard time when it looked so good after 2 games. Like, I don't know, man. They look pretty damn dangerous. And the vibe is seemingly very good. James Harden, it really is, say what you will about how he left Houston, how he left Brooklyn. When he's in a good place, and we'll see if it continues, this guy is special. And even you can see it in the zip on his passes and even kind of the way he's bouncing down the floor a bit. He's obviously having a lot of fun here in the early stages and kind of reminding people that he is on that short list of elite talents in this league. So they look dangerous. It's only a couple games. We'll see how it goes from here. But I like, the trade for them. And like you guys were talking about earlier, the parity in the East is just insane because you can, just kind of pick a team and throw a dart at the dartboard, and you're probably going to get it right in terms of somebody being a contender. There's so many really, really good teams. Well,
there's the Heat at the top of it. We're looking at it, a game in front of the Bulls, and DeMar DeRozan, what a run that he has been on. Cavs, Bucks, Sixers are right there, just 2.5 behind the Heat. And again, the thing is about Harden's first 2 games, Sam, is Embiid said after Friday night he's never been more wide open in his career. And then I can't help but notice the first 2 games that Harden's been there, Tyrese Maxey has been a hell of a third man in here. It's not just a 2-man game, No. This kid has lit it up the last 2 nights as well.
No, he's been fantastic. Yeah, and even that, my goodness, like how great has this, or how well has this worked out for Daryl Morey, the Sixers president of basketball operations? Because if you go back to when Daryl was trying to trade for James Harden with Houston, Tyrese Maxey, I believe at that point, was part of the discussions and just wasn't the guy that he is now. And there was a world that existed where you kind of sent him along because he was, you kind of saw him as expendable at the time. And now to see the kind of player he's become, where he gives you a third, impact guy, is huge. And it's just, it is, again, it's wild to watch. James, I don't know what quarter it was. He had a pass the other night where, from behind half court, just a chest pass to a runner on the right side. And I was thinking to myself, I wish they had an odometer on that thing or a speed gun, because it just had more zip on it than any Harden pass that I'd seen in quite some time. And I thought it spoke to how locked in he was. So they're dangerous. It is tough that they had to lose Steph Curry in that deal. They would be, even better from a shooting front if that was the case, if they still had him. But they're really good.
Last one for you, Sam Amick of The Athletic. What is your reporting on Zion and what's going on, and the fact that C.J. McCollum has not really connected with him, and whether there's something up with Zion and the Pelicans and his future there in doubt.
Yeah, I mean, tough to read and handicap it. A brutal couple days where his former teammate J.J. Redick was sharing just really candid perspective about Zion on a huge stage at ESPN. Now, CJ, to be fair, has updated the situation and now claims that Zion did reach out to him, but it's a terrible look that it comes, 10 days after he was traded to New Orleans or whatever it was. So, I mean, Zion working out in Portland, trying to, get himself in a good place, that decision reportedly was one that he came to mutually with the team, so it's not as if he's just completely going rogue and going places where the team didn't greenlight it. But, listen, we all know where we feel like this is going. Reports for quite some time that his family just doesn't want him to play there. But it's unfortunate because right now you look at what the Pelicans are doing, and if he was healthy, which I don't think he is, but if he was there, I mean, this is maybe a top 4, top 5 team in the West. If you add Zion to it, given the way they're playing the last 2 weeks, they got a lot of potential. But that's not going to be happening anytime soon.
All right. So as I send you out the door, what do you think the story of the next 4 weeks in the league is going to be? What do you crystal ball it?
Crystal balling.
What do you think?
I got recency bias because I was up late last night writing about the West. I mean, I know this is not as high profile or doesn't necessarily move the needle, but the Denver Nuggets are really good, and they might be getting Jamal Murray and Michael Porter Jr. back before the playoffs. So we talk about the East having parity. I mean, I guess the story down the home stretch is parity. We got parity in the East, and then out West, you got teams at the top of the West really scuffling because the Suns have no Chris Paul, the Warriors have no Draymond Green, and so there's a little vulnerability there. And here come teams like Denver, Minnesota. Now, it would be perfect if the Clippers were getting Kawhi Leonard and Paul George back, but that's not happening. But there's just dangerous teams on the second half of the West, kind of top 10. So it's just so different, Rich, than all those years in recent history when we were kind of just waiting for the Cavs and the Warriors to meet in the finals again. Like this entire stretch feels very relevant, and there's plenty to keep track of every single night.
So you're saying having Mike Malone as my first guest tomorrow is a timely guest, especially what you're saying.
Timely guest. Just don't call him Mike. Don't forget, you got to call him Michael.
Michael Malone. Michael Malone. I am making that note
Don't
right
you remember,
there.
did you not see when he kind of got on Cassidy Hubbarth of ESPN for calling him Mike during her in-game interview with him?
I will call him Michael Malone, and thank you, Samuel. I appreciate the time.
Trying to help you. Yes,
thank
you.
You
Got it, Richard.
You make me better. Thank you very much, Sam. Take care.
You got it.
Appreciate it.
See ya.
There's
Bye.
Sam Amick of The Athletic. Hey, you watched all the way to the end. Thanks for that. Watch more right here.